My name is Graham Whitford, 32 years old, founder and former CEO of Whitford Dynamics, a tech company I built from scratch in a cramped garage with only 2 servers, a cracked monitor, and a vision so stubborn it got me through a decade of 20-hour workdays. Now I wake up in a 1-bedroom rental where the walls are thin and the neighbors louder than my thoughts. And I chose this over the villa, over her, Vivian, my wife, on paper, in name, nothing more. She's the kind of woman who walks into a room and time forgets to tick. Sleek, brilliant, commanding. Daughter of one of the wealthiest real estate tycoons in New York. She wears silk like it owes her a favor and speaks like the world was made to agree. I didn't marry her for love. At first. I married her because it was supposed to be a partnership, a merger. Her family's empire and my tech ambition, combined. It wasn't supposed to be this cruel. I learned very quickly that Vivian loved power more than she could ever love a person. I was just another acquisition to her, a well-dressed trophy to sit beside her boardroom achievements. Our wedding was lavish, televised, sponsored, absurd. She called me the husband who got upgraded, and I laughed. In public. At home, she was different. Cold, calculating, surgical. Every compliment came with a price tag. Every dinner was a business meeting, and every touch felt like it was meant for an audience. There were no I love yous, only calendar invites. It wasn't always this bitter. I tried. God, I tried. But Vivian didn't want a partner. She wanted a pawn who wouldn't argue with the queen's move. I once confronted her about how she spoke to me during a meeting. She smirked and said, "If you want respect, Graham, buy some stock in it." She knew I hated the villa. It was hers before we married, modern, towering, with so much glass it felt like a display case. I never felt like I lived there. I just existed in it, carefully posed in each room like part of her collection. So I left, packed a bag, disappeared without drama. I didn't even take the Maserati. Just the old keys to my bike and my dignity, though both were rusted. And now here I am, eating instant noodles in a dimly lit kitchen, listening to the rain beat down on the cracked window pane. Alone, but free. At least that's what I tell myself. Until the knock on the door came. It was one of her assistants. Not the usual one. Vivian rotated them like seasons. This one looked nervous, clutching an envelope like it had teeth. She asked me to deliver this. She said, "It's urgent." I opened it. Inside was a single piece of thick ivory paper. Handwritten, in that cruelly elegant script of hers. "You don't get to walk away without consequences, Graham. You owe me, and I collect." No signature, just the faint scent of her perfume. I leaned back, heart pounding slower than it should. The game wasn't over, she wasn't done with me, and I'd just stepped back onto the board. The next morning, I woke up to the flicker of my dying ceiling fan and the smell of mildew in the corners of the room. My first thought was the letter. "You don't get to walk away without consequences." I read it again under the gray morning light, tracing the ink with my thumb like it would smear into something softer. It didn't. It just stared back. I didn't have long to ponder. My phone lit up with an unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. "Graham?" A familiar voice came through, too silky to trust. "You've always hated being predictable. That's what made you interesting." "Vivian?" I sighed, pressing the bridge of my nose. "You know I blocked your number." She chuckled, the kind of laugh that said I control the room. And yet here we are, talking. "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew the answer wasn't going to be simple. "A meeting, lunch. My driver will pick you up at noon." "I'm not coming." "You will," she said, tone turning sharp. "Because if you don't, I'll have to involve lawyers, and you don't want what's in the prenup going public." I froze. "You're bluffing." "I don't bluff. See you soon." The call ended. My pulse didn't slow for a full minute. At noon, the car arrived. Black, polished, faceless. I got in because part of me still needed answers. Maybe part of me wanted revenge. Maybe I was just tired of being the one who ran away. She was waiting at Le Séraphin, an upscale place so exclusive even the staff whispered. Vivian was already seated at her favorite corner booth, glass of white wine untouched, She wore navy, diamonds at her throat, and that usual look of someone 3 moves ahead. "You look tired," she said. "That rental must be eating your soul." "Funny, I was about to say you look just the same. I guess Botox works." Her smile didn't falter. Still charming, still bitter. "I'm not here for pleasantries, Vivian. Just tell me what you want." She leaned in, her perfume hitting me like a memory I couldn't scrub off. "The board wants your signature." I narrowed my eyes. "What board?" "Our board, Graham. Whitford Dynamics is still legally half yours. After your little tantrum, investors started asking questions. Doubts spread. Stock dipped. Your absence is costing me money." I stared. "You want me back?" She laughed out loud this time. A few diners turned. "God, no. I want your name on a document that says you approve the merger with Halverson Tech. Clean, public, reassuring." "You mean the merger you swore you'd never approve? That was before you left like a spoiled brat." I folded my hands. "What's in it for me?" She blinked slowly. "Your silence. Your dignity. Your distance. You sign, I don't release the prenup contents. I don't mention your prior arrangement with my father. Or the debt you owed him." My breath caught. "You swore that was off the table." I lied. That was Vivian in a nutshell. Every agreement came with a hidden clause. I looked away, heart pounding. There were secrets buried in our marriage that could sink both of us, but mostly me. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I found someone new, and I don't need the press asking why my ex-husband still owns half my company. I'm cleaning house." She stood up, pushing a crisp envelope across the table. "You have until Friday." She turned and left, just like that. The envelope sat in front of me like a loaded gun. Back in my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I let the dusk settle in, let the silence press its weight on me like an old suit I couldn't shed. The envelope sat unopened on the counter, right where I threw it. Vivian always knew where to press. She never raised her voice, never threw things. Her words cut cleaner than any blade. That was her power, grace laced with poison. I poured myself a drink, cheap whiskey. Nothing like the aged scotch she used to stock like furniture at the villa. I took a sip and tried to ignore the one question that had been circling my mind since the restaurant. What did she mean by your prior arrangement with my father? I hadn't thought about Charles Langston in a while. Her father, a real estate shark in a tailored suit. The first time I met him, I was 28 and drowning in debt. Whitford Dynamics was bleeding cash, and the banks had started calling. Charles didn't blink when I pitched. He just nodded slowly and said, "You have something most don't. Obsession. I like that. But obsession can be ugly when it turns desperate. Let's make sure you don't get there." He didn't just invest, he erased my debts, cleared them with a snap of his fingers. In return, he had only one request: marry his daughter. I said no, for 3 days. Then I saw the letter from the IRS. The debt I didn't even know had matured. Charles knew. He always knew. So I caved, signed the papers, became Vivian Langston's husband in the most expensive wedding the Hamptons had seen that summer. And I told myself it was just business. But Vivian made sure it never felt like just business. I opened the envelope. Inside was the merger contract, clean, precise, and one line that made my throat dry. By signing this document, Graham Whitford relinquishes all claims to executive power, financial profit, and shareholder leverage within Whitford Dynamics and its subsidiaries. It was more than a signature. It was surrender. A knock broke my focus. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not here. I opened the door cautiously, expecting another of Vivian's errand boys. Instead, it was Lucas Dane. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Once my closest friend, my CTO, the guy who used to sneak energy drinks into my coding marathons. But after the wedding, we drifted. I shut everyone out, including him. "Lucas?" I stepped aside. "You look like hell." "Yeah, well, hell's got a better minibar," he muttered, stepping in. He dropped into my torn couch like he still lived here. "I heard about the merger. You gonna sign it?" I gave a hollow laugh. "You came all the way here to ask that?" "I came because I know what she's doing," he said, staring at me hard. "You sign that paper, you lose everything. Your company, your shares, your legacy. I looked down. I already lost all that when I married her. No, he said. You didn't lose it. You handed it to her on a silver platter. I flinched. Maybe I deserved that. Listen, Lucas continued, pulling out a USB stick. I've been digging. That merger with Halverson? It's not clean. There's offshore accounts, hidden debts. If she pulls this off with your name on it, she walks free. You get nailed. That stopped me cold. She wants me to be the fall guy. She needs you to be, Lucas said. You're still legally tied to the company. If the SEC comes knocking, guess whose signature's on the bottom line? I stared at the USB in his hand. How bad is it? Bad enough that if you sign, you're not just broke, you're indicted. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not that I usually did, but this was different. The USB drive sat on my desk, glowing faint blue like it was daring me to plug it in. I hadn't touched it since Lucas left. He gave me space, said he'd be back in a day or two, but his words haunted me. You sign that paper, you're not just broke, you're indicted. And yet, the only thing louder than his warning was the memory of Charles Langston's voice, crisp and final. You owe me everything, Graham, and debts are never forgotten, especially by family. Family. I was never family to Charles. I was leverage. A groom for hire he bought with a blank check and a brutal smile. He once told me, Vivian doesn't need love. She needs a man who knows how to stay out of her way. And I tried. God help me, I tried to stay out of her way. But she never stopped cutting into mine. I plugged in the drive. The files were a maze. Offshore shell companies, internal memos, code words I didn't recognize. But one word kept repeating across the documents: Rothmore. It wasn't Halverson. It was a Rothmore shell company hidden behind Halverson's investment firm. If this deal went through, it would allow Vivian to liquidate a portion of Whitford's remaining assets and move them into a Rothmore bank in the Cayman Islands. And I would be the one who signed off on it. My stomach turned. The real kicker was a scanned internal memo from Vivian herself. I read the whole thing twice. One line burned into me like a scar. Graham Whitford's current living conditions will make his eventual collapse more palatable to the public. Ensure the media team has footage of his decline. We want the story of a burned-out genius, not a betrayal. She was planning to destroy me publicly, frame me as the broken ex-founder, the man who lost his grip, while she walked away with my company and the sympathy of the press. And I thought I'd already seen the worst of her. My phone rang. Blocked number. I picked up. Still playing detective, Graham? Vivian. Her voice was lighter now. Playful. Dangerous. I know about Rothmore, I said quietly. Silence. Then a slow exhale. Of course you do. That's why I hired you back then, remember? You're clever. But cleverness can be inconvenient. You want to frame me, set me up as the fall guy. I want to move on, she said simply, with or without you. But if you force my hand, Graham, I will not hesitate to ruin you. You already ruined me. No, she said. You ruined yourself the day you fell in love with my money. She hung up. I sat frozen, her words like ice around my ribs. She wasn't bluffing. Vivian never bluffed. I didn't just need to stop the merger. I needed to strike back, but not recklessly. She had lawyers, press, board members, all on a leash. I needed leverage, and there was only one person who might have it: Charles Langston, the man who brokered my marriage, the man who knew what he'd bought and what he'd buried. I hadn't seen him in over a year, not since he whispered at our wedding reception, "Don't disappoint her. She hates that more than losing." I found his number in an old contact list. I dialed. To my surprise, he answered on the first ring. Graham. His voice was gravel wrapped in velvet. I expected your call 3 days ago. You knew she'd come after me. She always finishes what she starts. I need a meeting, in person. He paused. Bring something worth my time. I've got everything you tried to keep hidden. Rothmore, the shell companies, the Cayman accounts. He laughed. You always were a fast learner. Tomorrow, noon, your office. He didn't agree. He didn't decline. Just said, don't be late. The Langston building stood like a black monolith in Midtown, 40 floors of cold precision, glass walls, and silence that echoed wealth. I hadn't stepped inside since my wedding rehearsal dinner, and even then, I felt more like a product on a shelf than a future son-in-law. Security recognized me. Of course they did. I was once Langston property. They didn't ask questions, just nodded and let me in. The top floor was still his, still untouched. The same steel gray carpets, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. The view meant to remind anyone who entered that Charles Langston looked down on everything. And everyone. He didn't stand when I entered. Didn't offer a seat. "Graham," he said, "you look lived in." "I hear that a lot lately," I said flatly. He studied me like I was a quarterly report. "So, Vivian's got her claws out and suddenly the prodigal son wants to talk strategy. I'm not here for strategy. I'm here for answers." Charles gave a low, humorless chuckle. "Answers? You're a decade too late for answers. I know about Rothmore. I know she's laundering assets through Halverson." "Laundering is such a low-class word," he said, reaching for a decanter. "Try diversifying. I have the files, the accounts, the correspondence." He poured 2 glasses. I didn't take mine. "And yet," he said, sipping, "you're still here, trying to negotiate. Why?" "Because I want to know why you chose me." He looked at me then, really looked. And for a moment, something in his expression flickered. Almost pity? "You think I chose you for your company?" he asked. "Whitford Dynamics was a spark plug in a sea of Teslas. You weren't my ideal candidate." "Then why?" I demanded. He leaned back. "Because my daughter, for all her brilliance, lacks one thing: anchors. She doesn't believe in people. She believes in position, in narrative, in control. I thought marrying her to someone real might humanize her, ground her." I laughed, loud, bitter. "You married her off like a business fix?" "You were supposed to be her equal, Graham. Instead, you fell in love. With her, with the wealth, with the idea of winning. That's when you became useless." I stepped closer, my hands clenched. "You knew she'd destroy me. I knew she'd try, and I knew you might survive. But that was your test, not mine." My voice dropped. "You're helping her with this merger?" "No," he said. "She didn't need my help. I built my empire with leverage, not theft. Rothmore is her mess." I studied his face. For once I saw something that resembled age, the weight of too many decisions made behind locked doors. "Then help me expose her," I said. "Help me end this before she takes down the company you backed." He tilted his head. "And what do I get?" "I clear your name. I pin this where it belongs, on her, not on you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You'll need more than files. The media's already lined up behind her, and the board's too afraid to move." "Then give me someone who's not afraid," he smirked. "You want the hammer? Find Paige Calloway." "Who?" "She's a reporter with the New York Ledger. She tried to take down Langston Global 5 years ago. Almost succeeded." "Why would she help me?" "Because she hates my daughter more than she hates me." He scribbled something on a card and handed it to me. "She'll want proof. Bring it." I pocketed the card. "Why are you doing this?" Charles looked out the window, voice low. "Because Vivian's finally playing a game she can't win. And I want to watch." The New York Ledger newsroom was smaller than I imagined. Cramped, chaotic, humming with low voices and the clatter of old keyboards. I stepped past a distracted receptionist and scanned the bullpen for the woman Charles had told me about. Then I saw her. Paige Calloway looked like someone who had stopped caring about impressions a long time ago. Leather jacket, ripped jeans, a black bob cut unevenly, and eyes that said, "I've buried bigger monsters than you." She noticed me before I spoke. "Graham Whitford. Thought you were taller," she said, not even looking up from her screen. "I was once," I muttered, "until your favorite villain shrunk me." She finally looked up, tilted her head, and motioned me to sit. "I assume you're here to talk about Vivian Langston." "No, I'm here to burn her to the ground." She smirked. "Now that's a headline." I handed her the USB. "Offshore accounts. Fake merger. She's laundering money through Rothmore." She plugged it in, eyes scanning files. Her face changed. Amusement faded. Professionalism clicked into place. "This is serious," she murmured. "She wants me to sign off on the deal and take the fall when it blows up. You expose it before it closes. She loses everything." "Why now?" she asked. "Why not run to a lawyer or the SEC? She's already buried half the board in 3 major outlets. You'll find more truth here than in any courtroom." She leaned back, chewing on the inside of her cheek. "Okay, I'll run it." "That easy?" "No. I'll run it if it checks out, if it's clean, and if you agree to go on the record." I froze. "What? You want to burn her? Be the match. This isn't an anonymous leak. You want the press to listen. You have to stand in front of the fire." I hesitated. Vivian would retaliate. The media would circle like vultures. But what choice did I have? "Fine," I said. "Do it." She nodded. "Give me 24 hours. That night, I lay on my couch watching the ceiling peel. My phone buzzed twice. "Lucas, you sure about this?" Me. Too late to back out now. There was something terrifying about silence before a storm. I'd felt it the day Vivian and I said our vows. I'd felt it again when I walked out of the villa. Now it roared in my ears like a countdown. I opened my inbox. 2 new messages. First, from Vivian. "You're making a mistake, and I don't forgive mistakes." No signature, no explanation. Second, from Paige. "It's worse than you thought. We need to meet. Tomorrow. My office." The next day, she closed the blinds as soon as I arrived. "You told me about Rothmore," she said, "but you didn't mention the secondary accounts." "What secondary accounts?" She opened a folder on her desk. Hard copy now, not digital. "There's another layer. Vivian didn't just plan to siphon money. She funneled assets from Whitford Dynamics into personal accounts under aliases." "Aliases?" I leaned in. "Whose?" She flipped to the last page. "Yours." I blinked. "What?" "She's created the illusion that you've been embezzling from your own company for years. Fake invoices, ghost vendors, backdated transactions. It's airtight, unless someone knows what they're looking for." The blood drained from my face. "She's setting me up for prison." "She doesn't want you ruined," Paige said. "She wants you erased." I stood, pacing, breathing through clenched teeth. "She's been building this for years, since before I left." "She's meticulous," Paige agreed. "But she made one mistake." "What?" "She used a fake vendor, Transveil Systems. It's a name she used back in a different investigation I ran on Charles. Same shell structure, same address. She got lazy." I laughed. It was hollow, manic. "She thought no one would dig that deep. She thought you'd break before you did." I turned toward the window, staring at the city like it might blink and vanish. "Then let's dig deeper." The next 48 hours felt like years. I barely slept. 8 when I remembered. My mind was locked in constant rewind, going back over meetings, texts, dinners with Vivian, the way she'd glance at her phone mid-conversation or disappear into a locked study late at night. Every detail, every brush of her fingers on my shoulder suddenly felt rehearsed. Every whispered, "Trust me," now sounded like a warning I should have heard years ago. Paige had moved the investigation into high gear. Her small team, 2 interns and a retired forensic accountant named Roy, set up in a dusty side room of the Ledger building. They called it the bunker. Appropriate, considering we were digging into a war. "She's been planning this for at least 4 years, Roy told me, adjusting his glasses as he pointed to a timeline pinned to the corkboard. "The first ghost vendor under your name was registered a month before your wedding." My chest tightened. "Before the wedding?" "She knew she was going to ruin you long before she said I do," Paige muttered. I looked at the timeline. Payments, transfers, charities used as laundering fronts, silent board appointments. Every thread was like a needle through my skin. Vivian didn't just fall out of love with me. She never intended to love me at all. "She even registered a dummy trust fund in your name," Paige added, handing me a paper. "Guess what it's labeled as in the filing?" I didn't answer. "The slum experiment." I stared. My hands trembled. "She was mocking me," I whispered. "The villa, the marriage, leaving it all. She wanted me to crash, to walk away with nothing." Paige didn't say anything. Her silence was the worst part. Confirmation without pity. Later that night, I called Lucas. "I need access to the Whitford mainframe," I said. Silence. "Are you insane?" he finally said. "They've firewalled everything 10 times over. Legal would be all over it. I'm not asking for a lecture. I don't even work there anymore, remember?" "There's someone who does," I said. "Riley Maddox." Lucas exhaled sharply. "She's still there?" "She was always loyal to the old crew. She covered for us when we ran tests after hours. Vivian always overlooked her because she wasn't loud. She'll lose everything if she gets caught." "She won't," I said. "Not if we move fast." Riley agreed to meet that night. A small diner on the edge of the city, the kind of place you go when you don't want your name to be remembered. She wore a hoodie, hair tied back, and eyes full of fear. "You shouldn't have contacted me," she said as she slid into the booth. "You're the only one I trust. You're the only one stupid enough to be doing this." I showed her the embezzlement files. Her hands shook. "This is bad, Graham. Like federal prison bad." "I know. And if I don't clear my name, she gets away with it. She's already spinning a story to the board. Says you're bitter, unstable, might leak classified data. She's framing me as the crazy ex-husband." "She's good at it," Riley said. "Half the board already believes her. Then we need to give them something else to believe." She glanced around, then leaned in. "I can get you limited access, backups from the internal audits, but it'll only buy you a couple hours. That's all I need." Back in Paige's office, we pulled the audit logs Riley sent. "There," Paige said, pointing to a string of entries. "See that? An override on a quarterly report from 2 years ago. It was signed off under your credentials, but look at the IP address." I squinted. "It's not mine." "Nope, but it matches one used to approve 2 other Rothmore-related entries." "Vivian? Or someone on her payroll?" I leaned back, pulse thudding in my ears. "Paige," I said. "We're getting close." She nodded. "Close enough to bring this public." The plan was simple in theory. Controlled release of the evidence to the ledger, accompanying statement from me, clear, direct, damning. No drama, no tears, just facts. Paige's team prepared everything. The article, the infographics, the footnotes and financial breakdowns that would make any auditor choke on their coffee. What wasn't simple was timing. "She'll move fast once it's out," Paige warned. "She'll throw lawyers, PR, maybe even bribes. We hit first, we hit clean, but you have to be ready." I wasn't ready. Not for the calls I'd start getting. Not for the texts from former friends who'd vanished after the divorce, but would suddenly remember how to spell my name. Not for the public to watch me rise again. Or crash harder. But I nodded. "Post it tomorrow at noon." She gave a firm nod and went to work. That night, I drove to the edge of the city, where the skyline vanished into chain-link fences and forgotten storefronts, the old tech lab, the garage where Whitford Dynamics was born. The building had been gutted for over 2 years. Vandals had sprayed tags across the rusted roller doors, but I still recognized the cracked pavement where I used to sleep under my desk. Lucas met me there, said he needed air, said he had something to confess. "Back in year 1, he said, leaning on the hood of his car, "I got offered a buyout. $500,000 to walk away quietly. Guess who offered it? I didn't have to. Vivian." He nodded. "She said I was too loyal, that you needed to learn how to be alone." I clenched my fists. "She's been sabotaging everything since the beginning," I muttered. Lucas pulled out a flash drive and handed it to me. "What's this?" "Internal comms from a Slack archive. One of my old contacts at Halverson got cold feet, told me to take it and run." I opened it on my laptop. Dozens of conversations, boardroom discussions, back-channel messages between executives, all laced with code names and hidden agendas. But one thing stood out. A message from a Halverson exec to Vivian. "He's not just a liability. He's a witness. Get him off the board or we delay." "She wanted me out before the deal even finalized," I whispered. Lucas looked at me. "And now you know why she's desperate." I closed the laptop. She built a cage, and now I'm the one holding the key. The next day, the article went live. Slum-bound CEO fights back. Inside the corporate coup of Whitford Dynamics. Byline, Paige Calloway. The piece spread like wildfire. Paige didn't hold back. Detailed accounts of Rothmore's illegal accounts. Vivian's digital fingerprints on fake vendors. The Cayman connections. The planted embezzlement files. Everything. She even included quotes from Riley and Lucas. And then, there was my statement. I left the villa, but I didn't leave my name. I didn't leave my dignity. Vivian Langston thought she could buy silence. I'm here to say, you can't launder the truth. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a battlefield before the first shot was fired. 2 hours later, my phone exploded. Calls from unknown numbers, journalists, former colleagues, board members. One call came from an old friend at the Tribune. Vivian's filing a civil suit for defamation, he said. And rumor is, she's got someone inside your camp feeding her info. My blood ran cold. I texted Paige. We may have a leak. Pull everyone offline. Now. She responded instantly. Already ahead of you. But it was too late. At 3:45 p.m., a press release from Vivian's legal team hit the wires. Mr. Graham Whitford has engaged in a coordinated misinformation campaign rooted in personal bitterness and fabricated evidence. We are pursuing full legal remedy. Whitford Dynamics has no further comment at this time. Attached was a statement from someone I never expected, Riley Maddox. I regret being involved in spreading unverifiable data. I cannot support Mr. Whitford's claims. I apologize to the board and to Miss Langston for my lapse in judgment. My stomach twisted. She flipped, I whispered. Lucas looked at the screen over my shoulder. Or she was always with them. I hadn't felt that kind of cold since I walked out of the villa. It wasn't physical. It was in my chest. A deep, hollow stillness. Like something that had been holding me together had just let go. Riley. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't process it. She wasn't supposed to be another knife in the back. Not her. Lucas paced behind me like a caged animal, while Paige sat at her desk, scanning headlines with a fury in her eyes I hadn't seen before. She torched us, Paige muttered. Everything Riley gave us is officially tainted. Every quote, every audit. It's under review now. She was scared, I said quietly, or bought. She wouldn't do this for money. Paige looked at me, unimpressed. Everyone has a price, Graham. Especially when Vivian's the one writing the check. I shook my head. No, Vivian doesn't buy loyalty. She buys fear. If Riley flipped, it wasn't for profit. It was protection. Paige's expression softened slightly. You need to talk to her, Lucas said. I don't think she'll answer my call. Then go to her. It took me 2 hours to find her. Her apartment was dark. Her phone, off. But I remembered where she used to go when she was overwhelmed. An old bookstore near Columbia, tucked between a juice bar and a florist. Quiet, out of the way. I found her there, in the back corner, wearing sunglasses indoors and holding a book she wasn't reading. When she saw me, her face paled. Graham, she whispered. Why? She looked down, silent. I didn't come to yell, I said, voice rough. I just want to know what she used. She swallowed hard. My brother. What? His name's Kyle. He's 20, stupid kid. Got caught hacking into a startup's back end 2 years ago. Vivian's lawyers kept it buried. Said they'd make it all disappear if I cooperated. And if you didn't? He'd be charged. Felony hacking, prison time, ruined life. I exhaled slowly. So it wasn't money. It was leverage, Vivian's favorite currency. She owns people, Riley said softly. Not with cash, with secrets. You could have come to me. And say what? Hey, remember that person you trusted? She owns my family now? I sat beside her. The anger was gone. Only the weight remained. Come back, I said. We'll protect Kyle. Paige knows people. We can fight this. She shook her head. It's too late. I've already been quoted. Already lied on record. If I flip again, I'll lose what little credibility I have left. I looked her in the eye. Then help me from the shadows. Do what you can. Quietly. Off the books. She hesitated. then nodded. Back at the ledger, Paige wasn't thrilled. "She's compromised," she snapped. "If you trust her again and she folds—" "She won't. She already did," I sighed. "She's not the enemy. Vivian is, and we're running out of time." Lucas chimed in. "We need another source, someone untouched, someone credible." Paige stared at her screen. "There's one." "Who?" "Michael Crane, head of compliance at Halverson. He was listed in one of the Slack leaks, minor player, but he knows where the bones are buried." "He'll never talk," I said. "He's got a teenage son in remission from leukemia," Paige replied. "If Vivian's threatening him, he might want out." "Where is he?" "Staying at a private clinic near Lake Ridge." I stood. "Then that's where I'm going." Michael Crane was smaller than I expected. Nervous eyes, fingers that tapped constantly against the table. The clinic was quiet, sterile, untouched by the noise of the city. "I'm not supposed to talk to anyone," he whispered. "Neither was I," I said. He stared at me, eyes dark. "She'll bury you." "She's already trying. She has people everywhere, lawyers, media, even judges. If I say a word, she's going to pin this on you too. You think she'll let anyone walk away clean when it blows up?" Silence. I handed him a folder. "Here's what we've got: IP logs, vendor trails, off-the-record testimony from 2 sources. We need your piece of the puzzle." He hesitated, then slid a small flash drive across the table. "What's on it?" "Everything," he said. "Authorization logs, transfer approvals, the original Rothmore pitch. It wasn't about a merger. It was about a cash-out. She planned to drain the company, then fold it, walk away rich." My jaw clenched. "And leave us to burn." He nodded. Back in the city, Paige examined the files. "This is it," she said, voice shaking with adrenaline. "It's over." "No," I corrected. "It's almost over. Now we make sure she doesn't rise from the ashes." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Paige. The files Crane provided weren't just damning. They were time-stamped, signed, traceable, and nearly impossible to fake. Every shady transaction, every secret offshore transfer, every internal memo. It was all there. We had her. The question now wasn't whether we could take Vivian down. It was how. "Option 1, Paige said, scribbling on a whiteboard in her apartment-turned-war room. "We go straight to federal regulators, SEC, IRS, and let the law do the rest." "Which would take months, maybe years," I replied, pacing behind her. "Option 2, she continued. "You call a press conference. Drop the entire truth publicly, in your own voice. Her PR machine won't be able to spin fast enough. Unless she pulls another card and spins it into another lie, she'll make me look like a desperate ex with a grudge." "She already did that," Lucas said from the couch. "If we're doing this, we go loud." "I know how to make noise," I muttered. "Option 3, Paige offered, almost reluctantly. "You go to the board privately. Give them the evidence. Let them vote her out before any of this hits the press. And risk them burying it to save face," Lucas added. We all went quiet. Every move was a risk. Every path led to war. Then Paige's phone buzzed. She frowned. "It's Riley." I tensed. "Put her on speaker." She did. "Vivian knows Crane flipped," Riley's voice came through. "She's going nuclear." "How?" I asked. "She's holding a closed-door board meeting tomorrow at 9. She's presenting a motion to dissolve your remaining rights as co-founder retroactively." "She can't. She's trying to rush it through before your evidence hits the floor. If she gets the votes, she'll claim you were stripped of legal standing before your leak, meaning everything you submitted becomes retaliation, a vendetta." "She's flipping the narrative again," Paige muttered. "Smart." "She's also cutting backdoor deals with shareholders tonight," Riley added. "I overheard her offering positions in a new executive restructuring. She's buying votes. Hard." I clenched my fists. Then we crashed the meeting. The next morning, I walked into Whitford Dynamics for the first time in over a year. Same marble floors, same security desk, same smell of overpolished glass and ambition. Only this time, I wasn't walking in as a CEO. I was walking in as a threat. The receptionist blinked when she saw me. "Mr. Whitford, I wasn't informed of your visit." "I'm attending the board meeting." "It's, private, sir." Lucas stepped forward, flashing his phone. "This email says otherwise." He handed it over. It was a forged internal memo Paige had whipped up that morning, crafted with just enough ambiguity to raise doubt. The receptionist read it, pale and confused. I'll call legal." "Do that," I said, stepping past. They didn't stop us. Upstairs, the boardroom was already full. Vivian stood at the head of the table, dressed in black like she was attending a funeral. She didn't even flinch when I entered. "Graham," she said, tone neutral, "this is a private meeting." "I know, that's why I came." A few board members shifted awkwardly. A few stared like I'd grown horns. Vivian turned to the chairperson, a man named Eldridge who had once toasted my birthday. "This man has no authority." I dropped the drive onto the table with a soft click. This drive contains detailed logs of offshore laundering, shell company movement, and internal emails proving a deliberate attempt to collapse this company from within. By you. "Graham!" Mr. Crane has already given his statement to 3 news outlets and forwarded everything to a contact at the SEC. That news drops in 90 minutes. This is your only chance to act first. Eldridge leaned forward. "What kind of statement?" Paige, who had quietly joined us, tossed printed pages across the table. Signed, dated, detailed. He names names. Vivian's smile didn't crack. Anyone can type up documents and call them truth. "Riley Maddox has recanted her recantation," Paige added. "Off the record, she admitted your blackmail, your threats, your manipulation. I'm afraid hearsay doesn't hold much weight in this room." "Then maybe this will," I said. I opened my laptop and streamed a hidden recording, the one Riley had just sent. It was Vivian's voice, crystal clear. "As long as Graham's name stays on the company, he's a time bomb. We gut him first, publicly. He'll beg for a settlement by the time I'm done." "And if the media turns?" another voice asked. "Then we bury him. Boardroom first, courtroom second." The room went silent. Even Eldridge paled. Vivian looked around slowly, saw the shifting faces, the quiet alarm. She licked her lips. "Do any of you actually believe?" "We believe we've been lied to," Eldridge said, voice cold. "This meeting is adjourned. The board will vote, now, on a temporary suspension of Vivian Langston pending an internal investigation." Vivian froze. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. But for once, her voice didn't command the room. Vivian didn't scream. She didn't throw a tantrum, didn't plead. That wasn't her style. She simply adjusted her coat, offered the room a thin, venom-laced smile, and walked out like she still owned the floor beneath her feet. The silence in the boardroom after she left was suffocating. Eldridge looked at me. "You'll be reinstated as interim board consultant during the investigation. We need time to review the scope of damage." I didn't answer right away. "I didn't come here to take my seat back," I finally said. "I came to make sure the truth wasn't buried." He nodded slowly. "Be that as it may, your name is still on the incorporation docs, and if Vivian's misconduct proves as deep as it looks, we'll need you to help clean it up." So there it was, my victory, or what passed for one. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt haunted. Later that night, Lucas found me sitting on the edge of my bed, tie loosened, eyes blank. "You know it's not over, right?" he said, handing me a drink. "I know. She's too proud to go down without fireworks. She's too dangerous not to." He sat beside me. "What do you think she's planning?" "Something messy, something public. Probably with lawyers and cameras involved. You ready for that?" I stared into the glass. "Not really." The next day, Paige stormed into the ledger offices holding a manila envelope like it was radioactive. "She's suing me now," she snapped, dropping the papers on my desk. "Defamation, slander, collusion, the whole alphabet." "She's trying to divide us," I said. "She's trying to scare us. She's already lost the board. Now she's clawing at the press." Paige rubbed her temples. "She won't stop until she has nothing left to throw." "Then we let her throw everything," I said. "And when she runs out, we bury her with what's left." But Vivian wasn't just throwing legal punches. She was building a story. Within 24 hours, her PR team leaked an anonymous exposé framing her as the victim of corporate sabotage by a bitter ex-husband trying to reclaim his glory. Headline: Broken Genius or Calculated Liar, The Fall of Graham Whitford. They used old photos, old emails, clipped sound bites from interviews, even private texts that had been twisted out of context. And somehow, it worked. The comments turned, fast. Looks like he's just mad she outgrew him. Maybe he really was embezzling and trying to spin it. Tech bro meltdown, classic. Paige was livid. Lucas wanted to punch a wall. I just sat in silence. You said let her throw everything, Paige hissed. Well, she's turning the public against you. I know. Then do something about it. I finally looked up. She wants me to fight her where she's strongest. In the media. In manipulation. But I won't play her game. Then what will you do? I'm going back to the villa. The villa stood untouched, pristine, sterile, a monument to the life I once pretended to live. I stood in the same marble foyer where we hosted our engagement party. The same kitchen where I'd once overheard Vivian laughing on the phone, calling me manageable. The same bedroom where I'd laid awake nights thinking her silence was just exhaustion, not contempt. Now it was empty, a mausoleum. I walked through the rooms with a recorder in hand, documenting everything. Not just to take inventory, but to remind myself how easily a kingdom becomes a prison. I found a hidden drawer in her study. Inside, 2 burner phones, a safe key, and a worn envelope labeled H. Inside the envelope, blackmail, photos, emails, screenshots of other people, executives, journalists, political figures. Vivian hadn't just been playing me. She had a network, a contingency plan, and now I had it. Back at the ledger, Paige spread the contents across her desk, wide-eyed. This is nuclear. I'm done reacting, I said. We go on offense. She met my eyes. You're not the same man who walked into my office 3 weeks ago. I know. The binder Paige made from Vivian's blackmail files was thick enough to break a coffee table. We didn't even know how deep it went yet. Each page was worse than the last. Compromising photos, financial trails, extortion records, text messages, surveillance stills. Vivian hadn't just controlled the boardroom, she had owned lives. Every name in here, Paige muttered, flipping through. They're not just scared, they're invested. If you drop this, it doesn't just bury her. It could ruin 6 careers. Then we bury them, I said. But my voice sounded tired, even to me. Lucas sat in the corner of the office, rubbing his jaw. You're thinking too small. We're not just exposing her anymore. This is a system she built. A system built around silence, Paige added. And if you pull the plug, they'll scramble. They'll also turn, I said. Not out of conscience, but survival. So we give them a choice, Paige said. Come clean, or burn. The plan was simple. Controlled leaks, 1 at a time. Every night for 3 days, we released a single page from the blackmail vault. No context, no commentary, just evidence. Anonymous drops on private journalist forums. Encrypted posts passed to sources we trusted. The effect was immediate. Suddenly, headlines began appearing without our fingerprints. Whispers of backroom deal surface around Langston conglomerate. Anonymous source claims blackmail network operated by suspended executive. Is a silent coup brewing in Whitford's shadow? No one dared say Vivian's name, not at first, but everyone knew. And behind closed doors, the calls started pouring in. Journalists, whistleblowers, former employees, names we hadn't even considered. They all said the same thing. We want out. By the end of the week, a private investigator connected to a federal audit bureau contacted Paige. They're opening an official probe, she told me. The IRS, SEC, even a few state-level prosecutors. It's happening. I should have felt triumph, but I didn't. I sat alone in my apartment that night, staring at the cracked wall, the one I used to hate, the one that had started to feel like mine. Vivian was going to fall, but so many people had been dragged down in the process. Riley, Lucas, Crane. Even Paige was now entangled in a public war she never wanted to fight. And me? I had turned into someone I barely recognized. I used to build things. Now I destroyed them. I opened a browser window, typed Whitford Dynamics into the search bar. The homepage was still live. My name still sat on the About tab. buried beneath layers of legal language, but there. I closed the tab. The next morning I got a message from Vivian. Not through her legal team, not through her PR firm, a private number, direct. You win, meet me. She chose a public cafe. Rooftop, midtown, surrounded by glass and neutral stairs. No room for dramatics, no cameras, no press. She wore white. The irony wasn't lost on me. You look tired, I said as I sat down. You look hollow. I feel it. She sipped her tea. You got what you wanted. I wanted peace. You gave me war. Vivian's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. So what now? She asked. You tell me. She looked around. For the first time in years, she looked unsure. I've lost everything, she said. But you don't look like a man who's won. I didn't want to win, I said. I just didn't want to be erased. She met my gaze. You're going to take it back, aren't you? The company. I haven't decided. You should. You built it. I did. But somewhere along the way, I let you convince me I was only worth what I could own. Silence settled. Then, I was never going to love you, she said. I know. But I respected you. Is that what that was? She shrugged. It's the closest I could offer. I stood to leave. She looked up, eyes slightly glassy. You're not going to stop, are you? Not until the truth is louder than your lies. Then I hope you know what that truth will cost you. I paused. I already paid for it. The subpoenas went out on a Tuesday. By Friday, 6 of Vivian's closest business associates had resigned. 2 were under federal investigation. 1 had fled the country. The others? Silent. Vivian hadn't been seen in public since our rooftop meeting. No statements, no denials, just a sharp void where her voice used to dominate the headlines. The media began shifting, not instantly, not all at once, but gradually in those small ways that made a difference. A retraction here, a new angle there. Whispers became conversations. The narrative pivoted, from the unstable tech mogul to the man who refused to be erased. I sat with Eldridge again, same boardroom, different tone. The investigation is concluding next week, he said. You'll be formally reinstated if you want it. CEO, full authority, will vote. I stared at him for a long time. Why me? I finally asked. You built this place, Graham. You risked everything to protect it. No, I said. I tore it down to protect myself. The company surviving was collateral. Eldridge sighed. That may be, but we've seen who you are when your back's against the wall. That's what scares me. Outside the office, Lucas waited on a bench with 2 coffees and a smirk. You going back in? He asked. I don't know. Why not? Because every brick in that building reminds me of who I used to be, and who I had to become to survive. He handed me a coffee. Then tear out the bricks you hate and rebuild. I looked at the skyline, at the tower I once dreamed of owning, the one I'd spent a decade chasing like it owed me something. Maybe, I said. The world moved fast after that. Page's final story broke 3 days later, a deep dive expose titled The Queenmaker's Fall, Inside Vivian Langston's Reign of Control. No hyperbole, no bias, just facts, names, numbers, actions. It hit harder than we expected. A senator stepped down. 2 journalists were suspended. 3 companies announced internal reviews. Vivian's name became radioactive. Her family cut ties. Langston Global scrubbed her photos from the website. The villa was listed within the week. And me? I still lived in the same cracked-walled apartment, eating the same instant noodles. Victory didn't come with champagne, just silence. Then came the letter. Hand-delivered, no return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Vivian's. You were right to finish it. You earned that. But before you erase me completely, there's something you should know. You remember the seed funding for Whitford Dynamics? You thought it came from my father. It didn't. He refused to fund it at first. Said you were reckless, naive. I'm the one who wired the money. He changed his mind after the launch. Took credit. It was easier that way. Cleaner. You would have hated owing me. You still do. But you never really did. You built the company. I just wanted to give you the chance. That was the closest I ever got to love, Graham. No signature. Just that final, familiar stroke at the bottom of the page. I stared at the letter until the ink blurred. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't know what to feel. Later that night, I found myself at the garage where it all started. The old Whitford lab, abandoned, faded, tagged by time. I stepped inside. It smelled like rust and memory. I walked to the far wall, the one I used to pin sketches and road maps on. It was still there, a yellowed napkin with my first pitch scribbled in marker. Systems that outthink people. That was the dream. Not wealth, not power, just something that mattered. Paige called around midnight. "Your story's done," she said. "Clean. Honest. The world finally sees you. Good. You okay?" "No. Need anything?" I hesitated. "Just tell me it's over." She didn't lie. Almost. I stood in front of the boardroom window, 10 stories above the city, staring down at streets I used to dream about ruling. The vote had passed, unanimously. I was CEO again. The legal cleanup would take months. Vivian's actions had left deep cracks in the foundation of the company. Regulatory audits, brand damage, internal restructuring, all mine to fix. I had what I came for: power, vindication, control. And yet, I'd never felt more like a stranger in my own empire. Eldridge walked in, carrying a new contract. "We'll make it official tomorrow," he said. "Publicly. I haven't signed it. You will? Will I?" He looked at me for a long time. "You're not here to run from the ashes, Graham. You're here to rebuild from them." I said nothing. He nodded, set the folder on the table, and left. That night, I visited Paige. She'd moved apartments, something closer to a park, quieter. There were books in stacks, tea on the stove, and the faint smell of lavender in the air. "You don't look like a man who just won his kingdom back," she said. "I didn't win. I just outlasted the storm. And now? I don't know what to do with the silence." Paige sat beside me. "That letter she wrote, do you believe her?" "I don't know." "She tried to ruin you. She did ruin me. But she also gave you a beginning. I just wish I didn't have to go through hell to find it." Paige hesitated. Then, "What are you really afraid of?" "That if I go back, I'll become her." I walked the halls of Whitford Dynamics like a ghost. Everything was clean, restored, polished, and yet I couldn't ignore the weight in the air, a history that couldn't be scrubbed off the walls. Old employees greeted me cautiously, some with gratitude, some with doubt, most with eyes that asked, "Are you the man we remember, or the one we feared you became?" In my office, I found the same photo on the desk, from years ago, the founding team. Me, Lucas, Riley, and 2 others who'd since moved on. We were smiling. God, I'd forgotten how that felt. I turned the photo face down. Lucas joined me at lunch. He didn't sit like a subordinate anymore. He sat like someone who had stood in the fire beside me. "You've changed," he said. "Too much?" "Maybe just enough." He handed me an envelope. "What's this?" "Offer letter, for me to stay." "I already assumed you would." "I haven't signed it." I laughed. "Fair." He leaned back. "You don't need to stay, you know. You could walk away, take the money, disappear. You earned that. And let someone else write the final chapter? Sometimes letting go is the final chapter." That night, I walked into the villa one last time. The listing agent had staged it to look livable again. Fresh flowers, clean linens, even fake family photos on the mantel. But it was still haunted. I opened the drawer where the blackmail stash had been. Empty now. Just one thing left. A single photo. Me and Vivian. Before the wedding. She was laughing in it. Real, not rehearsed. I hadn't seen that version of her in a long time. Maybe never again. Back at my apartment, I poured a drink and pulled out the CEO contract. I read it, front to back. Then I lit a match and watched it burn. The next morning, Paige called. "You didn't go in." "No." "You walked away?" "Not from the company," I said. "From the idea that I need a title to matter." "What now?" "I'm starting something new." "A company?" "No. A truth. I never thought freedom would feel so quiet. Not triumphant, not hollow, just quiet. The news hit every major outlet by morning. Graham Whitford declines CEO title, steps away from Whitford Dynamics. From the garage to the boardroom, and back again. Reinvention, not revenge. Whitford chooses the road less traveled. And with that, the war ended. But wars leave scars, not always visible, not always spoken about. Vivian disappeared. No public statements, no last-minute appeals, no lawsuits. Her lawyers withdrew. Her estate was put in a trust. The villa was bought by an anonymous buyer from Switzerland. I never saw her again. And maybe that was her version of peace. Or maybe it was exile. I met Lucas at our favorite hole-in-the-wall diner. The same one we used to brainstorm in before Whitford Dynamics even had a name. He wore a hoodie this time, not a blazer. So did I. We were just us again. I'm proud of you, he said. Don't get sentimental. Too late. We clinked mugs of terrible coffee. I still think you should have taken it back, he added. Why? Because you earned it. I earned the chance to decide who I want to be now, and I don't want to be a man running a machine that turned into a cage. He nodded slowly. So, what now? I smiled. I'm building something new. The office was small, 5 desks, 1 couch, 2 coffee machines, because I've learned some lessons shouldn't be repeated. Paige came on as editor-in-chief. Lucas handled infrastructure. Riley, after finally cutting ties with every last Langston contact, joined as our analyst. We named it Clean Circuit. Not a company, not a product. A digital platform for truth, no shareholders, no ads. Just stories that mattered, the kind too many were afraid to tell, or too buried to be heard. We launched with one feature, What Power Leaves Behind, an unfiltered reflection on empire, ego, and the price of silence, written by me. The public response wasn't explosive, but it was real. Letters, emails, survivors of financial abuse, whistleblowers, people in love with the wrong kind of power. They all said the same thing. Now I understand what happened to me. That was enough. One day, weeks later, a package arrived at the office. No note. Inside, a hardcover book. Game Theory and Female Leadership, Essays on Control. The inside cover had one sentence scrawled in pen. Some people are built to be followed, others to be feared. You were neither. You were built to begin. I didn't need a name. I closed the book and slid it onto the shelf, right next to our launch binder. Lucas found me on the roof one evening, watching the sun go down over a skyline that used to mean everything. Still waiting for a sign? He asked. No. I think you forgave her. Maybe. But you'll never say it out loud. No. He nodded, understanding. That's okay. Some forgiveness isn't for them anyway. Weeks later, I visited the garage again. I'd had the idea for months. I bought the lease, renovated it. Kept the old wall intact, the one with the napkin still pinned to it. Except now, I added something new. A plaque. It didn't say my name. It didn't say Whitford Dynamics. It just read, "Start something that matters, then be willing to let it go." In the end, I didn't win. Vivian didn't lose. We just ended, and that was enough.